Hi, this is Ian. I work in sales at Gruntwork, and I'm going to show how to use the Terraform Console, which is just a command in the Terraform binary, like this, to actually do some stuff. So it's pretty sparse right now. I can do things like upper and just say, test. That'll do things, and it's a good way to explore functions and things, but where it's really valuable is when you have problems like this. And I think a lot of people spend time debugging things, saying like, hey, I want to iterate over every environment's instance type. That's not a very good one. Maybe every environment's security group IDs. And that's like a common request. And, you could get pretty far with something like JQ, which is a great tool. You could just use the AWS CLI. I'm sorry, I got that in the way. But the documentation for JQ is admittedly not great, but it's powerful. I'm sure there's alternatives out there at this point too. Yeah, you can see there's the website for them. But that calls the AWS API, which is a little different than when you have a problem like this. And it's like, what we're looking at is not Terraform code, it's HCL at the moment. But the Terraform console, to my knowledge, maybe there's something I'm missing, can't see inside of this quite yet. So the first step when you're asking yourself, like, hey, I have this giant thing. Oops, I don't like this little new line right there. I have this giant thing. How do I loop through this and get out? Like maybe I want to create a data call for every instance type to make sure it's available in the region or something like that. Every name, every security group ID. There's lots of reasons to do this. The first thing to do when you're having this problem is to extract the problem itself to a new directory. So don't operate in the production directory of your environment or anywhere really. Just create a new folder on your local and just copy paste this. And this would probably come from a TFRs file, right? Because again, it's not, probably from a TFRs file. And a TFRs file, if you're not familiar with it, would be something like this. I could just do terraform.tfrs, and it will, any variables that, if there's a variable called global config that my module accepts, I can have it in this file called TFRs that will automatically be read. Alternatively, I could have prod.tfrs and then deb.tfrs and global.tfrs and all these different things. Anyways, this is not a chat about passing variables into Terraform. It's about how do I, I'm on my company's team and the security team requested something and I need to pull out every sudden ID or whatever. I just need to manipulate this really as much as I want. And the first step again is to take that block of code that you're trying to loop through and bring it to a new place. And I just called mine giantmess.hcl just for fun. So once I have that, what's the next step? How do I interact with it in that Terraform console thing we saw? Well, I'm actually just going to yank this and create a new file called main.tf. So I'll just paste this into here. We'll write it as main.tf. So now we have two files. We have giantmess.hcl, that's what we were first looking at, and now we have this main.tf thing. But we're not done yet because we need to actually assign this to something, and the easiest way is just to make it a local. So I could say locals, and then now what happens is I have a local variable inside the local namespace inside Terraform called global config. So that's all I did. By just adding this open curly brace and this closed curly brace and sticking the word locals in front of it, I've declared global config as a local variable. Because there's namespaces for these things, but we're in the local namespace, I think is still the word that we'd use. So anyways, I'm going to say that to open up the Terraform console now, which is just a command. I'm in this directory that now has my main.tf, and the giantmess.hcl is just going to be for reference. And yeah, it's just good to look at. So let's actually move this around a little bit and maybe do it this way. Just because it's nice to see, what's this thing I'm looping over with my right eye and then this one with my left eye. Anyways, Terraform console. You'll see why this is useful in a second, because when we start to break this thing apart, it's nice to know where we are at. And there's no script for this, so I'm going to make mistakes and have to go look and just be like, oh, okay, because I don't think anyone has this information down cold. So don't feel bad if you think you have to memorize this stuff. That's exactly the point of the Terraform console, is that you can spend 5 minutes messing around with it instead of 5 hours running Terraform plan and apply 100 times just to figure out like a loop that would take you a couple minutes to figure out with this method. Cool. So I could actually just say local.global config, and it'll print out everything. And there we go. So this is exactly it. Although it's not really exactly it. There's no key. In this case, there was a key, or I guess the name of a map, I should say, was global config. And now there's this locals thing inside of it, but this isn't really a key, I should say, is maybe a better way to put it. So like these are the things you got to think about right away. It's like, okay, well, I've removed sort of one layer. I don't have access to this string called global config anymore. I just have access to, well, actually, this isn't even really a string. This is a variable name. Yeah, getting into the weeds a little bit. But anyways, it just remember that. It's like, okay, well, the top starts at environments now because we're inside global config right here. Anyways, this is getting kind of boring, so I'll speed it up. So what can we do inside this console? Well, like right away, I can start to mess with it. I can put it inside of a list and make it the 0th element inside of a list. I could say, so I'm inside environments, so I should have access to prod, right? So I should be able to say localconfig.prod. Oh, let's actually check it out. Oh, environments? Yeah, sorry. So I could say localconfig.environments. Again, that's why it's nice to have this thing over here. And then I can say things like, okay, well, .uat. And then if we look, here's my command. It moves a little quick. And again, that's why having this reference on the right-hand side is helpful. Okay, so now I can access things like EC2 instances and a map called EC2 instances that has a key called DB servers that has an array or a list of maps inside of it that also has. So like we're already getting to these things where it's like, hey, I want to loop over. I just want to see these ones for each environment. How do I do that? Well, the first step of getting there is understanding how to like access just a piece of it and get that figured out. So that's why it's just very helpful, especially if you're new to this, just to mess around and make it throw errors, you know, like, and then figure out those errors. Because Terraform, other than authentication, which it really doesn't do a great job of explaining when you're screwing up, I think it does a pretty good job explaining when you've hit syntax errors. Especially because like you should probably run, you know, it goes quick, but like if I just make a mistake here, every time I write my Terraform, it will actually yell at me and say like, hey, you're broken. Yeah, so that's a helpful thing. Anyways, okay, so let's dig out maybe the subnets in UAT. What did I do wrong? Oh, CIDR. Sorry, I'm dumb. Cool, and subnets is, in this case for UAT, it only has one subnet. Well, I know we have a couple environments, so yeah, like prod has two. I don't know why I couldn't see that. So I say prod, and this should be a list of 2. Cool. And then I could also say, like, give me the 0th element of it, which you should really avoid the dot syntax for those and do something like this, just because it's more familiar. Cool. So that still doesn't solve my problem. Is like, I want to know every environment. Like, I have to loop through all my environments and get all the subnet IDs. All right, is that a good one to use? Yeah, that is a good one to use because it's like, look at it. There's a map called global config that has a key called elements inside of it that has keys for each environment name, and that's the point. Whenever a lot of times I've seen people just avoid the fact that they need to use the key when they don't realize it, and it's just something you don't do every day. Like this is work you would do once a quarter. And also just like if you're seeing stuff this big, you're probably in a situation that like it needs to be fixed. Like this should not be the norm. I should have really said that earlier where it's like your TFRs file should not look like this. There's better ways to do it. You should write your modules first, and then that will make thinking about this problem a lot easier versus I think people fall into this trap of like, oh, I'll design the input to my Terraform code first because developers will like it more. And it's just like, don't do that. One, they won't, but two, it's going to make maintaining it a lot dicier for you. So anyways, enough with that out of the way of like, don't do it this way. But anyways, the goal is to actually do a for loop inside of this console to get out whatever these values are and actually understand, like, for each environment, I want to do something. I want to make a data call. I want to find an AMI. I got to do something. And I have these deeply nested things that for humans are kind of easy to understand at a TFR's level, right? It's like, oh, what size is the instance type in development? Oh, the DB is an R5 large. Great. That's totally fine. But like doing this cleanly in Terraform is kind of tricky. So let's actually do it. And something to keep in the back of your mind, again, is like you're probably going to need, if you're thinking for each thing, you're probably going to need to use keys and values, not just elements of a list. What I mean by that is like we're just using elements of a list right now. We're not actually doing any for loops over something. So for each element or key we encounter, do some action. That's kind of wacky. Okay. Can I make this like... I was going to do it up here so it's a little easier to see. I lose my... That's what stinks. I lose my history, though. But that's okay, because it's also good to, once you get something working, to like just delete it and try it again and make sure it worked twice. Okay. So let's just state a problem that is like for every... Let's actually just do it over here, because I'm going to forget it if I don't focus. Print each environment's subnet IDs. I don't know how to do this right now, so we're going to work through it together. You probably can just fast forward through a lot of this stuff. This is really meant to be just like me, again, winging what the real world looks like when you're trying to figure out these problems. Okay, so I have my global, and again, I'll start very, very simply. Like, can I do an empty array? Cool. Can I do an empty map? Cool. Okay. What do I want to produce? Well, I probably want to produce a list usually, but a list that will have elements that are maps. Just trust me on it for now, and then you can explore later. So you're usually going to do a for loop that looks something like this. I can say for, and I have to pass in some variable name, and we'll just do this with the values first. For values, or value in, what is it called? Local.global config. And I just called it value. That's not a Terraform term. It could be Mickey Mouse. It doesn't matter. Colon, and I can just say value, because it only has one value. Environments. I could say value.prod. I could say value.prod.vpc.cider. Cool. Again, not very useful. You know what? I'm going to just... Actually, no. We'll just type it again. Muscle memory is good. I really wish there was a history for this thing. So we know we could do like for v in local.global config, colon. I got to put something in there for it to do. This is saying for every value inside of this thing, do something and put it inside of a list. I could say up... Oh, that's not going to work because it's a map. Again, just to mess around, cool. So now, yeah, I really wish there's like that kind of, yeah, it clears my whole screen out, which stinks, and actually doesn't get me to where I want to be. Sorry, that was command. I don't even know what I hit command K, the clear console thing. Okay. How can I do this better? Could I actually? I'm just thinking of something really quickly to at least put it in the center of the screen. Yeah, that's probably easier. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so we want to, let's just find the statement again. Print each environment subnet IDs, because we're going to do something to those IDs. So I have the values, but like a lot of times I'm probably going to want the key out of them. So how could I do this? Well, I could say for value and for actually, I can actually do another thing. So I could say like for KV, all right, that's not going to work. KI, A and V, K, oops, K. Oh, look at that. So I pulled out my keys. Think about what I did here. I said for every value in global.config, and I could actually make this slightly easier, but I won't right now because we'll just get it. We can optimize later. okay, so cool. I'm able to print out these things, but I probably want to do something else too. Where it's like, well, what if I actually want to do like maps of things? Maybe I want to do this and say, I want to have each subnet ID. So let's try to mess with that now. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm fat fingering everything today. It's Friday. Cool, that doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? Well, because we need a string value to be our key, even though we're printing keys. Two different items produce the key and test for this for extra. Oh, so this is because keys need to be unique. Just bear with me here. Again, this is saying, actually, this is good. You can use the grouping by key thing, which isn't going to help us. We don't want to group by key. That would break our stuff. I rarely see this used, but I also don't. I work in sales now, so I don't write a ton of Terraform anymore, admittedly. Okay, so, and again, if you're doing things like this, I would just reconsider. Because, like, who at 3 a.m. is going to know what this does? I don't, you know. I mean, I vaguely can assume it by this error message, but I wouldn't want to hit that at 3 in the morning. Okay, so what I was able to do, which is kind of neat, is say for each key, print the key. Local global config is we're looking at everything after this curly brace, and I guess before the closing curly braces. So we have a key inside of there called environment, which I could see if I did something like this. And notice how I said 4KI, and we could make this Mickey Mouse, literally. We'll just do it just to show that it doesn't matter. We could even do this and say Mickey Mouse, and this will just reprint exactly what we have, Mickey Mouse. Yeah, and I could say Mickey Mouse dot prod. Oh no, dot VPC. Dot CIDR. Look at that. We're actually already solving the problem just by kind of like messing around. And just to subnets is an array. And I want to get the subnet IDs out of there. So I have to loop through every array with a splat and then say ID. And look at that. We did our thing. I moved kind of quick there. And I wanted to keep this video short, but obviously it's 20 minutes long. But that was the goal. Print each environment subnet IDs. But that doesn't tell the whole goal because it's, again, computers do exactly what they tell you to do. What you're really after is, I want to know each environment subnet IDs for each environment. So when you're starting to say for each environment, there is this idea that you want to keep the key. Like anytime you're reaching for that for each expression thing, think you're probably going to want to like pluck a key from somewhere and then reuse it somewhere else, right? Where we're actually restating this data structure, like, and it's not really a data, just Terraform. I got to stop saying data structure for this, but we're just restating this stuff pared down and just like we're just reimagining. All the data exists here. We're not really adding any data, although we could. We're just restating it, and we want to maintain some of the metadata, I guess, around this data we're restating, which is these subnet IDs are what we need, but we also want to know where these relate to. And the easiest way to do that is just to use the keys, because like the keys are unique, as we saw earlier, where like you couldn't have two prod keys in here because that like breaks the whole idea of the thing. So what actually happened? I'll back all the way up again. And I just kind of got lucky there. Like things will break all the time for you. And like, you saw error. I make so many dumb errors a day. It's remarkable. I'm just going to blow this away and start over. So for value in global config, just to print the value. And the top of that would be environments. So I could also do something like this and say, like, show me the environments. I could pass it in here to save myself a couple keystrokes. So now I've plucked off that first key. And what I'm left with is the values inside of each prod dev UAT. Like we're looking at the dev one right now, but there's no dev key anymore, which makes sense. First, we were looking at when we didn't have environments, and I'll just remove environments, and I'll post this all to GitHub too, because why have ChatGPT burn more carbon? But it is helpful for generating dummy data like this. Like in this case, I dropped environments, and now we can see the keys for each environment name, right? Because like that makes sense. We're looking at the values inside of environments. That's what this V stands for. We can persist that though. We could say if I actually, in this case, if you only pass one variable, that will be for every element in that collection or every object in that collection will be assigned to this variable for every time it runs. If it's just one, it'll be the values. But if it's two, the first one is the key and the second one is the value. And that's not unique to Terraform. I think 99.99% of programming languages would follow this. So I could actually just print out the keys and say something like, oh, just give me the key names, environments. Okay, well, just give me the key names for when I blow out environments. What are the key names in here? And I can go even further. What are the key names in here? Dev. What are the key names in the dev VPC? But I can't do those splat things. I couldn't do this. And maybe this is what people get screwed up on. Oh, am I lying to you? I wonder why it produces a 0. Oh. Really? Well, I'm dumb. See, this is what you learn each time. Can I do this? Let's look at it. I know I'm kind of just curious. We could drag over the... So I'm saying for everything inside of environments, just do the splat thing. Could I do dev? 0 values. Could I do dev.vpc? Oh yeah, I guess it doesn't matter though, because I would want to do like this. Let's see if this would work. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, okay. I guess this is what I was trying to demonstrate. Well though, you know what? I don't know. I know this won't work. This is not the point. Sorry, I'm getting a little off the rails here. The idea is like I want to be able to maintain these keys and also dig out the value. So I could actually make this a little more succinct if I just do something. Remember I was like optimizing it? This is what I meant. Like, let's actually just let's skip this key in environments because we don't really need anything. There's nothing. The real way to say it is that inside global config, there's only one key. So I can kind of just say like, hey, forget it. In reality, what I probably should have done was assigned a new local so I could even skip this piece. But whatever. So we have our stuff, but we're inside a list right now. And we could, I guess, do something like... I guess like this, or I could say like key. How the heck would I do this? Yeah, and I could flatten it. I'm just trying to think of a real wacky way to do this. Like I could get here, yeah, so this is what I'm saying. Like I could do this, meaning I'm retaining this key thing and this value thing, but like, well, then I have to assume what? That inside this list, there's more lists, and the 0th element of each list is like the key, is the value of the thing. Like, no. Like, I don't want it. This is wacky. What I want is what we saw before. I want that the keys to represent the environment names, and then the values to be the subnet IDs or whatever after subnet IDs, yeah. Because I can use those keys in my for each loops. Like they're just strings. So like I can use them in tag names and other junk. They're very useful to have. I should have explained that more. That they're useful for a lot of reasons because I can access them inside my for each loops. They're not just like pleasant to look at in Terraform output. So in this case, I'm kind of basically there. I could do something like this and say K, and then I get the value, and what was it again? VPC.subnet. Excuse you? Oh. So I don't need the arrow. And then... Right. Well, I could do it this way. Actually, I can keep that there too. So what I really want is to create a map and then do it this way. The context of that K is gone inside that map as a key, which makes sense because I'm using the arrow syntax here instead of actually saying like literally string K. Consult your local Terraform expert as to why. And what do I want? IDs? Yeah, .id. Oh, subnet splat.id. Cool. So what do I have from this? This was the goal. Print each environment subnet IDs. Well, what this is really saying is create a map where each environment is the key, and the value of each M's keys. Oh my God. Keys is a list of subnet IDs, which is great because I don't have to worry about elements in there. Like I just say like, show me all the elements, and you know, I'm just saying like when I need these values, like I don't have to know how long this list is ahead of time. There could be 0 subnet IDs in there. Like I don't care. That's fine. So yeah, that's really it. Mess around with it and definitely generate errors, and it's just a great way to learn because that took 26 minutes of me messing around. But who cares? Like it's still a Terraform plan and apply will take 10 minutes. So like why, especially if you're going totally in a pipelined workflow and you just got to wait for the pipeline to spin up and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, just learn to use the Terraform console. Again, do it in a safe directory. So don't do it in your existing production directory. Just create a new one on your local. Copy the thing that you want to mess with. And then, so I'm going to say, what we are really saying is, yeah, so that's it. Copy it to a new directory, put it inside a local, and then fire up Terraform console, and you should be good to go. Make sure when you're writing a Terraform, you run a Terraform format against it, because that makes life easy. And yeah, now I can just copy paste this thing into my for each data call or whatever, and I'm good to go. So yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good day.